This is a special presentation from the Brighton Central School District Board of Education.
I welcome everyone this evening to the Brighton Central School District Board of Education Business Meeting and Budget Adoption for April 13th, 2021. I do apologize for a slightly late start. The board was in executive session prior to the 7 p.m. meeting tonight to discuss probationary teacher reviews, along with matters of real estate and employment of a specific individual. So we are starting slightly late tonight, so thank you. And as we get ready and I read forward here, I will remind folks that we will shortly have opportunity for public comment. If you are a member of the public and you wish to ask a question, make a comment this evening, please enter your name and address in the chat. Use the chat feature at the bottom of your screen, and we will call on you shortly during public participation. Please take note that the Board of Education of the Brighton Central School District, in response to the continuing emergency circumstances caused by the COVID-19 pandemic and consistent with the New York State Governor's executive orders, is conducting its scheduled public meeting this evening, April 13th, 2021, 7 p.m. to be held via Zoom and Zoom webinar feature through our district website. Public wishing to offer public comments shall be allowed to do so shortly. And again, we ask you to please enter your name and address on the chat feature at the bottom of the screen, and we will call on you shortly. You're welcome to ask a question or make a comment to the Board of Education. As we begin this evening and before we ask for public participation, I am going to turn it over briefly to Dr. McGowan to provide a brief community update on the latest guidance and return to in-person learning. Dr. McGowan?
Yes, I want to be crystal clear with our community, which I think many people know this already. We're thrilled to be welcoming our K-5 children back on Monday and hoping to bring 6 through 12 children back also on Monday, the 19th, this coming Monday. A couple of things have happened since we would have last reported on this or had this discussion in the community, which again has gone out in several communications to community members, parents in particular. The New York State Department of Health adopted largely the CDC guidance that was issued on March 19th. And as we had explained to the community, that was what we needed to have happen. That was the switch that needed to be flipped so that we could have kids come back. And it is different K-5 than 6 through 12 in this way. We are currently, as a region, in what is considered the red zone by CDC definition. This isn't the state's previous zones. This is the red zone by the CDC's definition, which means our cases, 7-day average per 100,000 residents in Monroe County on the CDC COVID data tracker, which is the source to look at, currently exceed 200 cases per day per 100,000 residents. It needs to be under 100 for secondary students to return, and here's why. Grouping or cohorting of students is required if students are to be in school with 3 feet of social distance, and that automatically happens at the K-5 level because of classrooms, set classrooms, standalone classrooms, first grade classroom, kindergarten classroom, second grade classroom, etc. So the very nature of them being standalone means they're grouped or cohorted. K through 5 kids can return despite the infection rate. 6 through 12 kids cannot be cohorted or grouped, which means they cannot return until the infection rate drops to the point where that is no longer required. And that would be, again, 100 cases, under 100 cases. Very straightforward. We're very pleased with the guidance from the state reflecting the CDC guidance based on that science, based on the progression and that discussion over time. It gives us the room to do this, and we're very glad that that has happened. Now we just need people to make sure they're wearing their masks, doing everything they can, and that they have been doing to keep that infection rate low and to get it even lower. So from a public health perspective, of course, we want people to be healthy so the rate doesn't go up, but also that helps our secondary kids return. So keep your distance, keep your mask on, and 6 through 12 kids will be able to come back. We will make a decision by 6 p.m. Wednesday, tomorrow, on 6 through 12 kids, but K through 5 kids are coming back Monday, period. All the kids, 5 days, fully in person. And then if it can't happen for 6 through 12 kids, and we announce that 6 p.m. tomorrow, we will look at it then for the 26th and make a decision by 6 p.m. next Wednesday and continue on that rolling cycle of looking on a weekly basis at whether or not we can return. We have been asked, well, when is the limit? When is the point of no return when kids wouldn't be able to come back because the infection rate hasn't come down and we're too close to the end of the year? There is a date, I just don't know it yet. So we will continue to monitor that and internally discuss the disruption to kids and families and what that would look like and make a decision when that seems reasonable, but we don't have a date yet in mind, haven't determined a date. We'll communicate that when we do. Let's hope we don't get to that point. Let's just simply hope that kids can come back and that infection rate is down. We also received guidance this week, just yesterday, late yesterday, regarding end of year events such as prom, ball, graduation, and our other gatherings that we have at the end of the year. We're carefully reviewing each of those, doing everything we can to maximize that opportunity for kids. And we do see some opportunity there. It won't be simple. There's complications to it, but we feel like we can make a lot of really good things happen. And the PTSA has been great about planning those events as well. And we're meeting this week to determine more about that and expect announcements over the next couple of weeks. Everything won't be determined right away. As we have from the beginning, we want to be really thoughtful, work with Dr. Mendoza and the Monroe County Department of Public Health to make sure we understand what can happen. We will submit plans for those events to the Department of Health and work to make sure that they are as safe as possible, but also that we maximize the opportunity for our kids within what the guidance will allow. And so that's underway right now. I think that's it. Mr. Kakanovich, you've heard me talk about it over and over again, or any other board members, any other piece that I've communicated to you or that's gone out or to any of the principals or Lou, anything that we also should be communicating out to people?
I would remind Dr. McGowan that Thursday night at 7 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
we will be holding a town hall specific to the return of in-person learning and the guidance from New York State and where we are. And that information is posted on the website, and we encourage all residents to tune in and join the webinar on Thursday evening, 7 p.m. And you're welcome in that evening to ask any specific questions that you have, and we will work through all of that. The one thing that I would add to what Dr. McGowan has explained, a couple of things from the board. Thank you to our entire leadership team, our building principals, Kevin, Lou, Debbie, Deanna, everyone. I mean, to continue to work every single day to deliver for our kids, all of our teacher leaders, our individual teachers, to continue to make this work. And then now to have plans ready in place to see more of our children returning to in-person learning, putting teachers and students together beginning on Monday is fantastic and outstanding and yeoman's work. So we really appreciate everything that's gone into this from all of our staff standpoint. The other thing that I do want to communicate to our community, we have been transparent and we have been excessive. We have communicated in every way known to be possible, including Dr. McGowan's new Monday morning video show. We will continue to do so. We understand that there is a lot of information out on local media, from other districts, on Facebook and social media pages. We will continue to communicate to our community as we have going back 14 months now on everything available, all the current information, where we stand, and we will continue to follow the rules, regulations, and guidelines and keep everybody as safe as we possibly can as we move forward. So we just wanted to make sure that people are on board with that.
No, I appreciate you saying that. And yes, to everybody in our district, you know, from staff preparing to continue to think about how to support kids in quarantine and how to shift then to having their full class back at the same time and continue to service remote folks at the same time who need that program, you know, to buildings and ground staff, making sure that the furniture's been moved back in and is ready, to the health staff thinking about how this would work and how we manage that, to people around pickup and drop off. The layers to this are just innumerable. And I think I had mentioned transportation, figuring out how it would work. So food service, everybody. And it's been really remarkable. And I would just say in terms of a tone, we're not frustrated with what's come out. In fact, this is an opportunity for our kids. We cannot wait. This is like, whatever your favorite holidays are, I feel like we're gearing up for that on Monday. And it's really, really exciting. Finally, more of a return to normalcy. And that's shared, universally. There is certainly caution and people that are concerned and within our district. And I don't want to take anybody's health or safety at all lightly. We feel very, very comfortable with the approach and feel like we can follow the guidance to a T. It has given us the room to do what we want to do, which is exactly what we had asked for and harped on with both the governor's staff and the health department for this to happen. And now we have the green light to do that. And it's just really exciting. Lots of opportunity there. And the reality is there's nothing frustrating about following the infection rate for the secondary level. That's a concern. And we need to drive that number down so that less people are sick, which is the benefit in and of itself. But then secondary to that, so that kids can have that return to normalcy and return to school too. So we're really excited about that. A great partner in all of this, in addition to the leadership team, all of you, has been our parents supporting the work, also communicating clearly with us. I want to emphasize again, 7 p.m. Thursday night, K through 12, anybody who's got a question, comment, suggestion, thought, please jump onto that Zoom. That Zoom link will be in the COVID update tomorrow, along with a link to a thought exchange. If you can't make it, you just want to share a thought, a question, or comment, please do it through that format also. Look for the COVID update tomorrow for that. Another great partner in this that can't be overlooked is our staff, who has been willing to do this work, to think about it differently, to support it every step of the way, to problem solve every step of the way. Their leader is here tonight from the Brighton Teachers Association, Judy Wagman. I can't thank Judy enough for that partnership and that work alongside. And I know Judy wanted to offer some comments tonight too. Judy, now would be a great time if you want to jump in.
Good evening, and thank you, Kevin. I actually think it's a perfect timing. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for giving me just a moment or two. My name is Judy Wegman, and I do live in Brighton on Towpath Lane, and I'm also just finishing my 31st year as a teacher in Brighton, specifically at Council Rock Primary School. And as well, I serve as the president of the Brighton Teachers Association. And so this evening, I just wanted to very quickly share some thoughts from our Brighton Teachers Association to the board, and especially to our community and families. The members of the Brighton Teachers Association have worked incredibly hard in partnership with our Brighton families and in partnership with our Brighton administration to navigate what is an extraordinary year. Brighton Teachers Association is eager and prepared to welcome our students back to school. Since March of 2020, it has always been our goal to have students back with us as soon as it was considered safe. And we are prepared to again, as students have the potential to return 5 days a week. And now, of course, we know welcoming our K-5 children back this coming Monday, and hopefully our 6-12 children not much longer after that. We want to take a moment to thank the Brighton community for your support throughout this past year. And whether remote, hybrid, or now full-time, we hope that you and your children felt and continue to feel the care and support from all of us. The Brighton Teachers Association represents over 350 counselors, teachers, social workers, speech language pathologists, school psychologists, academic support instructors, nurses, and school librarians. And so we share in the sentiment of all of you in our excitement of having our children back with us for whatever time we can have them. Thank you.
Thanks, Judy. And she may just cancel her video or cancel my video or cancel something and be unhappy, but I do want to point out that Judy is wrapping up her career in Brighton also, and after such a distinguished career, leaving us to retire. Could not be happier for you or more sad about the hole in the vacuum that leaves, and just grateful for all you've contributed to all of our children and to the district K-12 in so many ways, and as a resident, friend, and neighbor, and personally to me as a parent whose kids have worked with you also. So as much as she will be upset, I do think it's worth us all saying thank you very much to Judy. I know that was not your intent, Judy, but
thank you, everyone. It's been an honor, a wonderful career. I'm very fortunate to have been in Brighton.
Thanks, Judy. Mr. Kakanovich.
Thank you very much, Kevin, and thank you, Judy, and thank you for joining us this evening, and thank you for those outstanding words and your continued support, and again, our thanks from the Board of Education. So thank you very much. Dr. McGowan or Dan Goldman, do we have anyone in any additional Brighton residents, I should say, in the chat that wish to address the board this evening?
We do not, Mark.
They're all saving it up for Thursday night at 7 p.m. at your town hall. That's what that's.
Got it.
Then the Board of Education, I will entertain, please, a motion to approve our agenda for this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Larry, seconded by Karen. Does anyone have anything additional corrections or comments on that? Okay, then all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have 7 in favor and none opposed. Thank you. Motion, please, for approval of the minutes from our March 24th, 2021 executive budget proposal and budget hearing.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Sue and seconded by Andrea, correct? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. That's carried 7 in favor, none opposed. As we mentioned, tonight is our budget adoption session along with our business meeting. The main portion of that of the evening, discussion of our budget proposal, and then a vote of approval of the board to follow. So I will turn it over to Dr. McGowan to begin, please.
Absolutely. So, very excited to share with you our executive budget proposal and ask for your adoption this evening. This has been adjusted from the original presentation on March 9th with some really great news that we'd like to continue to talk about with our community. First of all, key points of the state budget, which has now been adopted. Foundation aid is funded at a floor of 60%. If you remember, we've been receiving under 50% of our foundation aid, and the governor's proposal kept that flat. The legislature was successful in working with the governor to adopt a budget that sets the floor at 60. Now, it should be 100, we know that, but 60 is a significant jump for us. Also, very important to point out is the budget included language to guarantee that it would go up again next year, and then the year after go up to 100%. That type of promise has been made in the past and not fulfilled, especially if we go back to the beginning of foundation aid. So there's an amount of caution with regard to that, but we find it to be very promising and more within reach than it ever has been before. It's an important moment to stop and say thank you. Thank you to our community members that did so much to advocate in this regard. Thank you to Fight for Brighton, the community group that drove this conversation from an advocacy perspective, and the leaders part of that. Dr. Claire McLaughlin, of course, Dr. Rachel Remmel, Dr. Cindy Gowan, Moran McDade Clay, Leslie Seltzer, many people involved in that conversation, and so many community members that helped to make this happen. We appreciate that. The work of all of you as board members to advocate, and Lou for his tremendous analysis that has been a big part of uncovering this wrong and making it right throughout the state of New York has made a big, big difference. This move for us to 60% means an additional amount of foundation aid rounded to $2.2 million. Future increase, again, up to 100%. And we need to keep in mind this other key point, which is pandemic relief funds, which are going to be able to come to the district to supplement the budget, not supplant state aid, which was a concern as we went into this budget process, and something the governor has been prone to do over time, to take federal monies to replace the maintenance of effort that the state needs to provide. So this is really, really good news for us. Our response to that on the bottom of your screen is to continue to emphasize with our community that we are able to comply with the tax cap. This is a budget that does not break the cap, that is compliant with the tax cap. We are able to provide permanent funding for full-day kindergarten. So as we had announced before, we are adopting that program. We are able to restore the 6th grade foreign language reduction that was made in last year's budget. We have an improved long-term financial outlook. The next 2 items are key to that, as is the notion that we are these other previous pieces, kindergarten and foreign language. We had communicated, especially with regard to full day K, that we were going to be able to use funds from the future to pay for that now, leverage fund balance to pay for that now. Well, the next 2 items are key. We are able to reduce by $300,000 our reliance on the savings account. We don't have to duplicate then again in revenue next year to pay for that one-shot revenue. We are able to reduce that by $300,000 and reduce by $300,000 our reliance on margin reserves. In other words, the additional $600,000 beyond the 1.6 that pays for full day K and foreign language, and the other restoration and maintenance of programs, right? So when we knew about 60% even before that, we were leveraging $1.6 million elsewhere. We're now able to take the additional $600,000 that we didn't expect and reduce our reliance on margins, which is in every area of the budget. There is planned reserve that can then go at the end of the year towards fund balance, but protects us from the variances through the course of the year. So in some lines, when a program may cost significantly more for a student, that is an unanticipated need that comes up through the course of the year, or a student moves into the district with an additional cost, there's a margin. No different than when you go to Wegmans with maybe a budget of a certain amount, you might go a little bit over that. Hopefully you have a margin to protect yourself from that because the price of milk went up further than you may have expected it to. You budget for the trip, but you know you have a little bit of extra just in case. We're able to restore those margins, which means we're able to protect ourselves from those variances that impact your ability to fund your fund balances or your reserves going forward. We also recognize there's an opportunity for healing and innovation going forward in the future. In other words, how do we look at the programs from the past several years while we were very constricted in terms of our spending? And are we able to restore funding in different places? But are we also able to restore that notion of being innovative and thinking differently about the work, adding new programs? We've had people say to us in our budget forums this year, yeah, it's great you can keep program, but I actually moved here for you to be innovative in adding program and thinking about that. But finding the right balance for healing also relative to the burden that taxpayers have had over time that is, we think, exceeds what it should be, and it exceeds what it may be in other districts that have had the benefit of additional aid over time. How can we, over the long term, think about ways to ease that increase or ease the burden in any way that we can? That'll be a big part of our conversation going forward. But we know now with this adoption of the state budget, we will have that opportunity. We're excited about that conversation. There is so if we take a look just at the revenue breakdown, what does that look like for us, and walk through very briefly each of those lines. We know our adopted proposed budget amount is a change of $4.7 million. In other words, a 5.7% increase in spending overall that we are requesting from the community. And the budget adoption is a spending plan. There is a tax implication that we want to talk to you about tonight, but we want to emphasize over and over again, we ask for an approval of a spending plan from the community. In terms of revenues other than real property taxes, we're seeing that go up $1.1 million. Unrestricted foundation aid up 2.16, or we've rounded in the previous slide to $2.2 million. Building aid will go up $1.5 million, and we will use fund balance towards a tax levy of $1.7 million. So the total non-property tax revenues are $3.1 million. Add to that the increase in the tax levy of $1.5 million, and you see a percent change in revenues of 2.85%. In other words, the tax levy, the request is to the community, the result would be that it needs to increase 2.85%. The rate is not set by the board until August. The actual levy is not set, and the rate depends on the assessments as well. The property tax levy limit is $57.1 million. And again, we're pointing out the amount in excess of the tax cap levy limit would be $0. And on the right-hand side, there's a breakdown specific to the aid, the state aid categories. Foundation aid makes up 47% of our aid. That's the relatively unrestricted amount. Other small types of aids are 12%. BOCES aid in particular is 13%, transportation 13%. Those are the expenses in 1 year that are funded then by aid the next year, the reimbursables, building aid on the capital project being 15% of the total aid as well. So why not lower taxes immediately is a really good question for people to say, wait a second, you said we've been bearing this burden for a long time. Why wouldn't you just lower with this, what would be perceived as a windfall? I would say, first of all, it's definitely not a windfall. Remember, it's only 60%. It seems so much better because we were so low before. We should be getting 100%. That's a game changer of a conversation. 60% is a great increase, super grateful for that, but it's not 100% yet. So that's one key part of this. And although it is anticipated and promised, we've got to see it actually happen. And it hasn't always happened in the past. Very confident in Senator Cooney and Assemblymember Clark, who were such a big part of helping to make this happen, our representatives in this area, that it will happen, but we're not there yet. So that's one reason. Also, just analyzing the state budget, it relies on $12.6 billion in temporary relief from Washington. That's the state budget relies on $12.6 billion. Remember, the governor pointed out even last week, he had asked for $15 billion, got 12.6. So there's a concern for us there when we look at the state of the state's finances, that we need to do some forecasting and some hedging of our bets, because they have set their budget up based on some pretty significant contributions of one-time funds. What's going to happen with the New York City economy? That has a huge impact on the rest of the state. You know, when people complain about it, they talk about, you know, we're so much different from New York City and we should be our own state, et cetera. Don't forget that city residents account for 55% of the state's adjusted gross income just between 2011 and 2018, and an even greater share by job location. In other words, if you just looked at a few square miles in Manhattan by Wall Street, it makes up a huge amount of the personal income tax paid in New York State. It accounts for 71% of the state's job growth between 11 and 20. But again, a huge part of the highest earners in New York State, or a huge proportion of them, are in that location. And with the New York City economy the way it is, with people working more mobilely, leaving the state of New York, there's a concern that we need to be aware of going forward. Will the state tax increases have negative effects? Will the highest income earners who are being taxed at a higher level go somewhere else when they can work remotely? What happens when they expire? They are temporary, some of those tax increases. And there's a Supreme Court case, New Hampshire versus Massachusetts, that challenge states taxing income of workers who are now working entirely remotely out of state. And so that's a concern as well. Even though they're earning income from New York State and being taxed, if they're entirely living out of state, there is a lawsuit right now that is a concern for us to watch, and it's a Supreme Court case. Oh, sorry about that. Remembering that non-New York State residents, right, working in New York State but non-residents, account for 16.6 of the personal income tax receipts in 2018, the most recent data we have. That's more than all of upstate. And so that's a real concern if that Supreme Court case goes a different direction. So those are all reasons why when we look at this, we need to be really cautious going forward, and we'll study that carefully. It will be obviously better if the state is able to fund foundation aid at a higher level again next year. We'll have a higher degree of confidence and be able to look at this a little bit differently, increasingly every year, finding that balance between an opportunity to ease that burden and the opportunity to grow program and service our kids differently over time, which is awfully important, and restore things that have been reduced. What does this mean in terms of the budget that we're proposing, staffing increases, et cetera, and restoration of positions? The total number of FTE staff positions identified in the 2021 budget were 600. This budget would be 628. And that accounts for new positions, full-day kindergarten, but also positions that had to be added during the year, which were significant as well. A variety of support positions that had to be added. And again, that goes all the way down, if you look at the bottom of the screen, to that 5.72% increase overall, each of the different appropriations. So staffing is up at the top. Equipment will go up. That's replenishing some of that work. Again, not a significant dollar amount, but a significant percentage in the need to replenish places that we held back and didn't spend on because of more austerity measures. We will be restoring those. And our principal and interest payments on our debt pickup, that goes up 23%. Again, all planned, anticipated over time, but that average is 5.72% in terms of spending. This is just a breakdown of those positions that we're talking about, what's being added, what we're proposing. If you look all the way over at the changes on the right-hand side, we're talking about 14 positions overall in the teaching area, largely around full-day kindergarten. That is identified in the middle column. You see 9 positions total, 2.4 budgeted for the 6th grade foreign language, and then parts of positions across the board relative to full-day kindergarten, adding special area support for those, and special education support as well. We're able to reduce 2 positions based on class size adjustments, grades 1 through 5. That's still part of the spending plan. Property tax report card, as adopted by you already, does spell out each of the variables from New York State, what we are responsible for, and ultimately each of the balances for the reserves on the right-hand side. Without reading the numbers at the community, again, the property tax report card, the middle number being the most important, the proposed tax year levy 2.85% and an under the cap number. This is all provided and posted on the website for data for people to review at their leisure. And each of the reserve balances is indicated on the right-hand side as well. And remember, those help defer greater tax increases from happening because we can draw from reserves to pay for particular expenses. Taxpayers have put this money aside over time, and you've been thoughtful stewards of finances to be able to offset big increases in expenses, necessitating a larger tax increase along the way. And that's the value of those reserves, those savings accounts for a specific purpose. They can only be used for those reasons as well. What is the impact on property taxes? Again, ultimately, you'll decide that when you adopt that in August. But right now, the levy increases would look like this particular table. Let me walk through those. We'd be looking then at a difference. So on the left-hand side, the tax rate for 2021 was $25.99 per thousand in Brighton, $26 per thousand in Pittsburgh. Remember, there's an equalization rate to true that up between our different taxing jurisdictions. In the next column over shows you 21, 22, the estimated tax rate per 1,000. It's $26.69 per thousand in Brighton. The town of Pittsburgh, it's $27.87 per 1,000. There's an extra $1.35 per thousand. It's a one-time reassessment due to the equalization decrease of 95% in 2020. That was post the adoption of the levy, and that now needs to be assessed in this year's budget. Instead of assessing people during the year, the law allows that to be made up in this year's particular budget and assessed in this year's levy. So that's a one-time change, again, based on the equalization rate decreasing and that happening after, that calculation happening after the adopted levy last year by the district and our choice and the board's choice, as explained in audit committee and then publicly explained, to not assess that during the course of this year, but in this year's tax levy. The next column over is then the estimated tax bill in Brighton. $100,000 home, an increase of $70, $200,000, $140, $300,000, a $210 annual increase. We're looking at the equalization rate. Office of Real Property Tax sets that, provides that to decrease to 95%. And then in the town of Pittsburgh, excluding the re-levy amount, that $1.35 we're mentioning, is an increase of $1.87 or $187 on a home value at $100,000, $375 at $200,000, $562 at $300,000. And again, that is also due to the equalization rate set by their Office of Real Property Tax, decreasing to 91%. Capital project spending, the balance in the capital reserve is $7.6 million. We're proposing to the community to withdraw $1.5 million. The new debt authorization then of $3.6 million, and that would go towards rehab of the locker rooms and the lockers at Brighton High School, site work in front of the building, really redoing that whole front concrete, which through construction is damaged pretty significantly. Planned, by the way, to replace that with a brick entrance, replace of the head end system for the public address, rehab of pool bleachers as well, which is due, HVAC upgrades in the pool, new pool filtration systems, all part of maintenance that has to happen and can be done this way instead of through the general fund. Brighton High School and the middle school replacing stadium lights with LED, which will be more efficient, energy efficient over time, and better lighting. High school renovations to makerspace, which we've received a significant donation as well, that we'll be able to discuss more going forward to cover part of that cost. And middle school partial roof replacement as well. Again, pretty standard operational replacements, maintenance items. And we would propose matching the building aid with debt service to utilize the capital reserve funds that would offset the impact on the tax levy. In other words, no impact on the tax levy because we'd be getting building aid that would match the debt service on these projects. Other budget details are all available in these documents listed on the left-hand side of this slide at bcsd.org/budget. You can go to this presentation, click on that live link, and go see any of these items. Every single detail is provided for the community in great transparency, all available to you. Final point, remember, budgets communicate priorities. Where you devote your resources says a lot about what you feel is best for supporting children. We say that every year, and we feel that this budget communicates that very, very clearly in the proposed spending plan. It meets and exceeds all of the state mandates to support every learner across the spectrum. Funding fully in support of blueprint plans, respects taxpayers, honors commitments. Again, real keys here. Additional foundation aid is significant for the district, allowing us to have full day kindergarten, allowing us to be better prepared financially longer term and make those decisions over time, and restoring sixth grade foreign language, certainly something communicated to us by community feedback. Next steps in the process, we have a budget hearing 7 p.m. Via Zoom as well, and we'll get the link out to people. It'll be regularly communicated as well. And then, of course, the budget vote, new location in the central administration building. Given COVID, everything else that we're working on, traffic flow, hopefully more students back in the building at that time. The central administration building, we believe, will be a much better space for this and more accessible for the community, easier access for the community. So we're very excited, 7 to 9 central administration building. And I'm really thrilled to tell people that although Gretchen Schaefer, God rest her soul, is no longer able to have this conversation with us about the spaghetti dinner from Kiwanis on the budget vote day, Brighton Kiwanis will be sponsoring a food truck rodeo in the loop by the middle school during the dinner hours on the budget vote day. Please get a bite to eat. Really excited about that. The PTSA will be sponsoring one again the next week with a modified homecoming type activity for our students. Stay tuned for those details also. So those food trucks will be available both on the budget vote night and then from the PTSA. 2 nights that you don't have to cook and you can come to the food trucks. And that money, of course, goes to scholarships for Brighton students and the PTSA support of our students as well. Excited about both of those fundraisers. Plenty of opportunities to eat and support kids at the same time. Any questions on anything that's been presented tonight that I can answer for the board?
Board members, does anyone have anything that they would either like to ask Kevin or of Lou or make a comment on? Pretty quiet. I guess, well, that does show that the clarity with which we've been discussing this over the past many months and looking at it carefully since the final budget adoption from New York State, further understanding where we are. So I guess I will make a comment that thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Lou, and everyone else. We do often talk about budgeting being a 12-month-a-year situation and trying to work through everything this year. And then with the uncertainty over New York State funding, and then having really fantastic news come down for us, both for this current year from the state and from the federal government, but then also being prudent looking forward. We have to really pay attention to the federal money to be distributed can only be used for certain items, and we'll continue to have conversations about that in a very detailed way, public conversations, transparent conversations involving the community over the next few months. But then also, Dr. McGowan made a point that I just want to emphasize to the community. New York State has promised a lot of things to public education in terms of funding over the past 35 or 40 years. We hope that what's going to happen is what they've told us will happen, that over the next 3 years, we will be brought right up to 100% of the foundation aid money due, which would be fantastic and allow us to grow and allow us to add and allow us to look at the property tax levy in a more detailed way in Brighton, like we do need to do. But we have to see. We have to see what happens with that. We will have the ability to make adjustments as we go. And we'll know, I think, much more about that situation with next year's budget than this year's budget. This budget right now, tonight, that we've just taken a look through is certainly a value statement on where we are. It allows us to restore a number of items. It also very critically allows us to restore margins to areas that we have really cut to the bone over the past few years. And we do need to make sure that the public is aware of that. To get by over the past few years, Lou and Kevin and the rest of leadership have really worked hard to cut margins very clean, very, finally, let's say, and look at fund balance, look at reserve funds, and utilize really paying for the current. We have to restore some of that margin. And this budget does take that into account also. The other thing is we have a heavy lift with full day kindergarten in those positions, even though there is New York State aid to convert over to full day kindergarten. That only lasts for 3 years, and it diminishes quite a bit from year 1 to year 2 to year 3. So we are moving forward in a very prudent way, I believe, and I think the board believes based on the conversations we've had thus far. And I do endorse and I ask the board for a motion to approve and adopt the executive budget proposal as outlined this evening for our 2021-2022 budget to be presented to the Brighton voters on vote day on May 18th. So may we have that motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Karen, seconded by Christina. Any further conversation or comment amongst any?
Just that 60% mark, as you pointed out, is the beginning. We still have a long ways to get to 100%. We shouldn't take anything for granted, but if met, it will create some opportunities for us.
Absolutely, Larry. Very well stated. Then I will call the question. Everyone in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed, and we will present the budget as outlined to the public for vote on May 18th. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks to everyone's support. Thanks to the administrators, their participation in crafting a sound budget for the community to consider, in lieu, of course, for your financial leadership, stewardship, et cetera. It's so much appreciated. Thanks, everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much, Kevin. Then let's move now to our agenda item number 6 and our principal reports. We'll start tonight with our traditionally Council Rock and Principal Matt Tappan.
Good evening, everyone. So I submitted this before we had guidance. So there isn't a slide, but if there was a slide, it would be right here, and it would be celebrations and excitement for the possibility to bring many of our students back 5 days a week next week. We've been working hard, as Dr. McGowan shared, getting all the details ironed out. They won't be completely unwrinkly, but we will certainly continue to make sure that we are staying safe, but we are just really excited and again grateful for the support of our parents and my incredible staff at Council Rock, who is busily preparing to get everyone back. So that would have been there. But last month in March, we celebrated Music in Our Schools Month. Mrs. Granat, our in-person music teacher, and Mrs. Button, who is our remote music teacher this year, asked everyone, including students, what is music to you? And there were displays all over the school, and staff and students alike shared what music was to them and why it was important. As well as throughout the month, on Wednesdays, I typically do a read aloud. I shared read alouds that connected to music, but also we had some videos that were submitted by our staff and then members or family members of our staff that shared their music. So our librarian, Mrs. Motzkovicius, is an accomplished cello player. She shared her love for music and what it did for her, as well as one of our TA's sons who shared some drumming from Eastern Asia. It was just really awesome to be able to share such great things. And our music teachers are amazing and engage our kids in really awesome ways. So we also celebrated at the same time Women's History Month. These are some displays. The display to the rightmost is our brand new library display outside of our library that will be open in about 4 months. And then this is actually outside of Mrs. Youngman's second grade class, who helped to craft this. Great women in history and some facts about them doing some research. So this is a traditional first grade writing project, the best part of me, where students think about what is the best part of them. And this is actually Mrs. Files and Mrs. Baker. They are both remote teachers. These students worked on this remotely and then sent in their products when we did our pickup and drop off days. And these are displayed outside of their in-school traditional classrooms for all the kids at school to be able to see who are in person to connect with our remote students. This is also, so it's kind of a highlight of our first grade remote classes. These are our other two remote classes, Mrs. Allen and Mrs. Bruce. They did an author's tea. They did research completely virtually, obviously, using Pebble Go, which is one of our library resources. And they did it on an animal of their choice. And then through Writer's Workshop and support with the teachers online and the teaching assistants, they created a brochure and were able to share it with their class as well as invited guests. And it was just great. You can kind of see their amazing expressions. And these authors were really excited to share the work that they did. In second grade, one of the units that you've seen before in the past years is our urban, suburban, and rural. These are outside Mrs. Jurowi's classroom, who is on with us and will be reporting later. But just some really unique and different takes on how to represent urban, suburban, and rural in a pictorial way, but also some persuasive writing about which they would like to belong in the most, and trying to convince people about that. And then a connection that Mrs. Youngman's class did was to math. So they created an array city, and in math they're learning about arrays, repeated addition that leads to multiplication. And so you can see the picture kind of scrolled far away. They built buildings and put arrays in and connected that to their study of urban, suburban, and rural, particularly urban communities. So great to see the connections. And then I think the most important thing, often before a board, a couple weeks before a board, I always have my camera out and just taking pictures. And I just was in awe as I walked around of the writing and the art, and the work that they did together, and the work that teachers are doing to give kids their creative outlet, but also inspire the writing. So in here you've got Love Is, which is really still a hangover from Valentine's Day in February, but describing what love is, and kindness, supporting our habits of mind and our Brighton Believes traits. But then a lot of goodbye winter, hello spring, and all the things you say goodbye to when we change to the seasons, but really inspirational in what kids are creating and then using that to spark their writing. And that just was evident as I walked through the building for sure in these last few weeks. So we have an exciting event. It happens, you couldn't do this if you tried. It happens to be our first and second days back all together, but we will be welcoming author Julia Cook, who has written many, many, many amazing books that really cater to student social emotional growth and kind of social learning. One of the books we use a lot at Council Rock is My Mouth is a Volcano, learning how to control those thoughts you might have that don't come pouring out. But she will be at Council Rock. She will be presenting virtually to all of our students, both in person and remote, the 19th and the 20th. We're really excited about that and ready to welcome her. And then as part of bringing her along, the following Tuesday, so April 27th, we will be having a virtual parent night with her, where she connects to what she's talked about and talks about balancing parenting, how to help with anxiety and worries during COVID, and really just reinforcing the social skills that she teaches within her books and helping parents understand the power of books. And again, I can't say enough thank yous to the Brighton Education Fund, who helped to fund this during these times, this unique kind of experience that we weren't looking for an author, but it kind of landed in our laps, and they were amazing in helping us make sure that we could bring them. So coming up, besides a return to school, we will also have, as I just said, the author visit to all of our students the 19th and 20th, and then the parent presentation on the 27th. And just a reminder to parents that the following Friday is a superintendent's conference day, so there will be no school that Friday, which was previously planned and needed before the return to school. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Matt, and all the best for a wonderfully successful Monday. I mean, I'm sure all the building is looking forward to that coming up. So thank you so much.
Awesome, thank you.
Moving over to French Road Elementary School, the other building that's looking forward very much to Monday, and Dr. Rio.
Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here, and I want to echo everything that Matt said as well. We are ready for our students to come back 5 days for in-person instruction on Monday. We're excited. I'm really proud of our teachers for making this happen for our kids so quickly, and ready to welcome them back and bring the two cohorts together and new students and shifts. And I'm excited to see the school full again next week. So more to come, but we are ready. So today I have a few different things to share that are going on at French Road, but I always like to share our yearbook cover contest winner. This year our theme was unity, and we had over 100 entries from the kids, and maybe that's because we're in a pandemic and drawing has been really fun, but they were really, really great, and we are so proud of them. So the students voted on their favorite cover, and Karina, one of our 5th grade students, her cover is here, the one that's on the screen with the world picture with the rainbow. She created the unity theme, bringing everyone together. We had lots of runners up here. 4 on the right side will go on the back of the yearbook, but you can see kids really tried to think about things that were important to them this year and things we would remember this year by, and lots of different COVID pieces and Zoom and so many things. So proud of our kids who contributed to that. I want to touch on Brighton Believes Day, which seems like such a long time ago now, but it was just last month. And we focused at French Road on change makers, following the work that we did around Black History Month and looking at change makers throughout the month of February. We carried that over into Brighton Believes Day to make connections to other change makers in the world, and also to help our kids just think of themselves as change makers. And we started off with a school-wide virtual assembly from the Rochester Museum and Science Center, where we talked about and learned about what is a change maker, which connected to a lot of the work that we were doing at French Road in the classrooms with our students, and learned about change makers from the Rochester area. Students got to hear from one of the education experts at the Science Museum and hear a little bit about the exhibit that was there as well. But that was a big success for our kids, and it connected to all the work we were doing. And then they continued on that day, even though it was a Wednesday, they were at home, but they made changemaker signs for their homes and also to share with neighbors. So these are some pictures of the work that our students did at home. A lot of things happened in their driveways, in their windows. You'll see kids sharing with other people, hanging signs around their community. And these were ones that were shared from families. So even though they were home for the day, it was a really special day for our kids, and it was nice to see them participating and so excited. In addition, we ran a Changemaker Change Challenge, and the students at French Road in 1 week raised $1,750 to donate to FoodLink, and that was pretty fantastic. So this is our giant check that we had made to show them that was going to FoodLink, but they were so excited because we asked them to only raise $500, at least $500, I should say, which we thought was a lot of money for 1 week, to have a school-wide dance party in their PJs. And obviously they did more than that. So you'll see our first ever Zoom dance party that Miss O'Neill and I led from the main office conference room, zooming into classrooms and students' homes around Brighton. Definitely not a skilled dancer, but we'll do anything for the kids. So we had a lot of fun. You'll see all the kids checking out from home here, some classrooms in there too. The kids really had a good time. The teachers got on, and it was adorable. So really proud of the kids and impressed that they were able to raise that much money for a great cause in such a short amount of time. And then one of my very favorite nights at French Road is our Science and Social Studies Fair, and we had to cancel that last year because it is in March, right around the time we went into COVID and the pandemic. This year we didn't want to cancel it, so we took it virtual. You can check this out on the French Road Elementary School website. Under the student page, there's a Science and Social Studies Fair page. And what we did is had students contribute videos of the projects they were doing. And there's all sorts of projects on there, just like you would see if you were in person in the Science and Social Studies Fair. There are lots of different categories. And we had a night where we all came together on Zoom And we went through kind of just an introduction to all the work that the kids did and talked about being an inventor and you know, an innovator as a student. And then they had an opportunity to go to this website and visit some of the different exhibits and leave feedback for other students on a form that we created that we're in the process of sharing with the kids right now. But these are some links that I put in the presentation. I'm not going to go through them right now, but anybody can check these out on the website and you will be so impressed with the work that our students did. Some did it on their own, some had some support for videoing, some had partners, but very popular items, like just the things we would see if we were in person, and that was really fantastic, and they had a great time. We had a lot of participants in that too. So here's just a few pictures of some of the things that the kids shared. I like this, do I have to make my bed, a bed making machine that I would totally buy into, but lots of different ideas here for kids. And our classrooms, our special area classes, are all going to be back in their classrooms. So we've been slowly integrating them back into their rooms instead of our teachers' homeroom classes as we started off the year. And the teachers have been so creative in giving the students different experiences this year. And our tech teachers, Mrs. Harp and Mr. O'Neill, have really worked to build in some other opportunities for kids, because in the past we would spend a lot of time on our iPads and looking at computer skills, but now the kids are learning that in so many different ways through all the other work that they're doing this year that they've taken a kind of a different approach. And these are some pictures of one of our 5th grade classes working on electric cars that Mrs. Harp did with them. They're testing them out outside of the school, but it's been awesome to see the innovation that COVID has brought about in so many ways, and this is just one example of that. We have a few things coming up. Our state tests starting off next week, right when we come back to school, which is totally fine. We're going to rock those and move on with our week. We also have a special education meeting with the principal next week, and we are moving our ice cream social to a virtual ice cream social. And French Road Families, more information will be coming out to you this Friday in my newsletter, but we are looking forward to sharing what's going on in the school via an awesome video with some ice cream pickup. So stay tuned, more to come. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Allison. I guess I'm looking forward to the virtual ice cream social. I mean, it's traditionally we board members volunteer at that, and another one of those events that we miss greatly, but that will be interesting to see. And
You're
again,
gonna have to eat it from the comfort of your home, but
that's okay, like everything else for 13 months, right? But again, another great example in all of your reports of continuing to make it work in any way that you possibly can, and not losing traditions and not losing things that are relevant to kids, but making it work in a way that we can make it work. So thank you so much. We continue to appreciate that. And now we'll take a look at 12 Corners Middle School and Mr. Nunez.
Thank you for having me this evening, and I'm happy to be here. Go ahead and set this up before we start. All right, so things going on at 12 Corners. First off, in our library, as we finished up the final touches of the details, they've added some nice aesthetic art to the top portion of the walls. And what we have here are some really fascinating artwork. We have students who almost mirror the actual characters on the cover of books, and they put the books up to the side of the students' faces. And so what we have is an image of half the cover of the book and half the child, and it almost looks like they're all in one, as if they're reading the book or part of the book itself. So it's really quite amazing when you walk into the library to see that image up on the walls of those students and the artwork, and it's just fantastic, and it's a great addition to the library as you walk in to see that. Next up, we have a lot of kindness going around the building at 12 Corners. We have these postings going up today. Today, at the end of the day, we had several students walk around posting signs of kindness on students' lockers, walking up to adults and others and just handing them individual words and thoughts and sayings of kindness. Just lifted the spirits of people as they were walking around. It was just a really nice touch to have. And there'll be several students who are surprised when they come to school to find these cards on their lockers. So it was a really nice touch for our students and our staff to receive over the course of the day. In social studies, sixth grade, they have just culminated in their studies of ancient China. And so with that, there's some of the work postings of Confucius. But with that, the follow-up to it is really what's really going to be fascinating and interesting for our students. Mrs. Falter is working with this guest speaker, Amanda Jensen, who is going to come in and teach the children about authentic Chinese calligraphy. And so it's going to be a wonderful opportunity for our students to work with Mrs. Jensen. It's something that Mrs. Falter has been very excited about. And also the idea came from a student in the class who made the suggestion to contact Mrs. Jensen. And so fortunately she was available to come in. And so those times are being coordinated, but our students are going to have a really great opportunity to work with her and learn some calligraphy. In sixth grade, they have been reading the novel, The Watsons Go to Birmingham. And so with that, we've got some work outside that showcases some of the most interesting aspects of the book for our students. And for me, it's quite interesting because I'm also reading the book with my daughter at home. And so we get a quite good laugh out of it. And some of the favorite parts that noted here from our students are the same that my daughter and I have experienced. Within the first chapter, one of the students gets her lips stuck to the side view mirror of their car in the middle of winter in Detroit. And so it's a great book, but with that, you know, great lessons in history, great lessons in the civil rights movement. And with the work that has been done with our teachers, they have also tied that to some really great poetry and writing. There was a follow-up with social justice unit with their writings, and our students have done a really nice job of expressing themselves in different ways through haikus and different forms of poetry. And they're nicely posted throughout the halls of that sixth grade in our building. And so it's been really nice to hear their thoughts and their feelings of these current times and what they've learned over the course of the year through their readings. And so it's really impressive to see what our students are sharing and showing at TCMS. This is just a follow-up to more additional poetry that's there. Over here on the left side, you see a piece titled Fair, written by Daniel Gasparino. So it's a really well done piece there as well, but really great work that our students are doing there. And kudos to Mrs. Parks for her and the work that she and her students are doing with this. Here we have some award winners in writing and poetry from the Brighton Memorial Library Alice B. Wilson Annual Literary Awards Contest. And so we have several of our students from TCMS who were recognized for their efforts. We have Tara Lama, who won in the category of poetry. For prose and nonfiction, Etta Sorensen. Tara Lama also won in the section of prose and fiction, along with Ariana Cater, Jocelyn Case, and Maria Shinana. So we're really proud of our students for their efforts and what they've done and being recognized for that throughout our community. Just some upcoming events here, as was noted earlier. We have the New York State assessments in ELA, followed by our math assessments. In June, we'll have our teachers recognition lunch for our staff, and then our 8th grade bonfire, which we'll be excited to have and have something for our students to culminate their year with. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Jim. We appreciate that. And it's great to see some of those every year events still in there and making it happen. So thank you again, and thanks for sharing. And finally, wrapping up this evening, Dr. Hall and Brighton High School.
You're on mute, Dr. Al.
Okay, are we good now? All right, sorry about that. I want to start out with a topic that many of you heard about last week. Dr. McGowan and I sent out an e-news to the entire district, student, staff, and community about some recent reports, information that came forward regarding sexual assault and sexual harassment with students in the high school. So we sent out that communication last week, Wednesday, and I wanted to just share a quick update on kind of where we are in basically about a week from when all of this kind of hit social media.
So we've put together several resources for students and mainly for students, but community members as well, in terms of what students can do to report, take action, and discuss any concerns when it comes to sexual assault or sexual harassment. We listed out from talking to any trusted adult for sure to start with. You can come to any administrator. All of our counselors, we've listed their Calendly connections where you can schedule an appointment with them or just go to the office. 2 social workers, 2 psychologists, list the phone numbers. Our Safe Schools helpline, put that out again as a resource. It can be used for anything. Typically, we've used it for reporting mental health. It's been used a lot for mental health and social emotional issues and or threats, but it's also there for reporting anonymous tips on any sexual assault or harassment that might be going on or abuse. We also put together several resources. We're lucky in the Rochester area to have Restore, which we actually have that comes every year to speak to our freshmen dealing with domestic violence and sexual violence. Willow Domestic Violence Center, Bavona Child Advocacy Center, and of course, calling Brighton Police. And over the last week, so it's been just about a week, we've worked with several students and parents, many hours on Zoom, just discussing issues, having a dialogue. And I think that's, a huge part of our community is that we'll sit down and listen and clarify things that might not be so clear to students who you only hear a part of maybe what goes on or something that a friend shares with you. So we've had some really great conversations with students, and as I said, clarified the school's approach and what we can and cannot do, how the police interact with us, and then what we do typically if a report is made to us. And we've come up with also several points that we will be moving forward with. Again, this is in less than a week, of things that we haven't typically done, but we'll emphasize those as we work through this issue. Working with all of our community members and working with our professional staff, and we will actually have them in the building starting next month for a flex or 2 every month, depending on the interest of students that want to meet with them, people who are coming or specialize in sexual assault and violence. They will be there at the school to listen and make appointments with kids. We're actively going to publicize more in communications with our Safe Schools helpline. And if you see something, say something, it's for all concerning issues, not just threats. We've also made flyers and stickers that will be going in the bathrooms. Actually, the students who reported most of this in the beginning will actually be helping us to put those stickers in bathrooms so that the information is there for students all year round and in a place that sometimes students go just to get away from it all. So that'll be there. More direct instruction on sexual harassment, forcible touching with our students. We're looking at link crews, seminars, and health class, and any other additional places we can do that. More opportunities for small groups to talk with each other and our counselors, and having more conversations with students and clearing up the understanding of what schools can do and cannot do when it comes to these sort of accusations. And then when we're dealing with these very sensitive, confidential issues. We're also looking to have Bavona, Willow, and Restore with our administrators and counselors this summer to work through different case studies, talk about issues that popped up and how we've handled them, and then work with the professionals to see kind of where we fell, any additional things that we could have done or maybe would do moving into the future. And then thanks to Dr. McGowan, he's already set up for next Tuesday, the 20th, a 7 o'clock panel presentation forum with Brighton Police, administrators, counselors from the school, and the Bavona Child Advocacy Center that will be presenting next week. So we're looking forward to that, and all students and parents are invited to that to hear just about what we do and how we work as a collaborative team together. And I just want to say thank you to the students who helped bring kind of this issue forward. We've always dealt with it, of course, but I think with the dialogue we've had and listening that we've done, I think we're going to make it better for everyone involved. Fantastic food drive. We had the best food drive we've had. That was part of our Day of Caring. You can see the picture here. There were pounds and pounds of food that were collected by all of our students. Thank you to everybody who participated. We continue to have various student events and club competitions. Science Olympiad is well running and doing very well, actually. And as Professor Einstein says, use your hand sanitizer and social distance. So that's what we do during the competitions, all virtual, of course, happening at school, but virtually. Football, boys volleyball and girls volleyball happening March 3rd to April 12th. Actually, our last football game tonight for regular season. And then we'll be going into sectional play next. This was what the first football game looked like, some snow on the field. Kind of a rare thing to think about football and no leaves in the trees, but that's where we were. Everything's going well. Program planning continues to move forward. We've developed our courses that we're offering. Students have signed up. Course verification sheets, are going home by middle of next week with the report cards. And I want to give a huge kudos to Mr. Como, who worked very hard over the March-April break, and he's pretty much finished the master schedule. There's obviously conflicts and things to work through, but he's pretty much scheduled all of our courses and put our students in there for next year already, and I just want to give a big shout out to him. We'll continue to work through the process. Lots of student events as we come up into May and June. We'll be publicizing an updated calendar shortly. But we did make some changes with dates. The senior car parade is going to be on May 22nd, not in June. Senior signs are going up very soon on the lawns. AP exams 3 different times in May. We had to change senior ball to Saturday, June 5th, and our junior prom Saturday, June 19th, 7 to 10. We will also have some exams, but only 4 Regents exams in June, with classes some days and exams the next. Probably our last day of school will be June 21st, will be the last day of classes, and then we have graduation on the 22nd. And just immediate dates that are coming up, our varsity and JV spring sports start on Monday, and our 4th marking period begins on Monday. So with that, I will give back my screen.
Thank you very much, Tom. And just such an unusual year to look at those sports schedules, right, and the timing that we're making them work. But thank you so much. And I guess just quickly, just a shout out, thank you for your leadership team, the entire high school. This issue around sexual harassment, sexual assault, I think being very proactive as a district, you at the high school, providing resources, as many resources as we possibly can, as often as we can, in every location that we can, for anyone who needs them. So thank you so much for that. And again, just a reminder, you mentioned it, but next Tuesday, the 20th, 7 p.m., we have a town hall set up to discuss this. There'll be a panel discussion. There's information posted. There'll be more sent out. But thank you so much for your leadership on that. And I think that's so important to all families and our students and many situations that folks are involved in. So thank you so much. Moving on now, we do have 2 bids this evening, board members. May we have a motion, please, to approve both of those bids listed under item number 7, bids A and B?
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Larry, seconded by Andrea. These are a cooperative bid for art supplies and a cooperative bid for fine paper. And as is our usual situation, they are part of our BOCES 2 cooperative purchasing program that all districts are part of to ensure the best possible prices on these types of commodities. Does anyone have any question or comment on them? Then all in favor, please.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? That's 7 in favor and none opposed. The motion carries. Thank you. Moving to our reports section. First up, our financial reports the board has, and the items are posted on the website. Our treasurer's report for the period ending February 28th, 2021, and also the budget status report for that same period dated February 28th, 2021 from Lou. I do make note, in the budget status report that Lou prepares for us, the final page has a budget monitoring notes that he has been including this year that include all those items that we continue to keep an eye on, how different this year is and, prior to funding for next year. But one of the things we may mention before, and I do want to make sure the community realizes that we are estimating a loss of approximately $160,000 for the year on the food service operation for all valid reasons. But food service cannot run at a deficit, so there's another additional item that has to be covered through budget work. So thanks, Lou, for updating us on that. And
Can I
again,
just
those
note,
are the types of things unusual in this year that we just have to keep an eye on and keep track of. So
can I note one thing about that? I think I
Yeah,
saw a
go
question
ahead.
online that a community member had. They asked, what will you do with the money you're saving through our free lunch program? And I think there's some misunderstanding with how the federal free lunch program we're participating in doesn't add revenue to that, saves us money in some way. So if
that's a really
we
good
could address
point.
that at some point, I think it would be reasonable.
That's a really good point. Lou, could you just briefly explain, I guess? That's a great point. Thank you.
Sure. So with the federal government Department of Agriculture picking up the meals, so that's the revenue source for it. But if there's not the participation there to claim those meals, then we still have the overhead costs with the labor component. It's essentially covering for the cost of the meals served, but we don't have enough participation in to offset just the salaries that are coming through. And we still have enough participation where we still have to staff it and to produce the food. So we really need to drive up the volumes to be able to offset those losses, but it's a reimbursement basis. So there's no revenue coming in without an offsetting cost or an offsetting service.
Thank you. Good point, Karen. Thank you for bringing that up. Many ways we've had questions from the community all year about the money we're saving. And actually, in so many areas, multiple areas, we have additional costs, and then we have new costs to the year that we did not have. So we will be able to report out. Lou will be able to report out at year end as specifically, but it's safe to say that we're not saving millions of dollars. We are operating. We are employing our staff. We are operating this year. So there are some areas costing less, and there are other areas costing significantly more. So thank you for bringing that up. A motion to accept and receive those financial reports, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Sue, seconded by Christina. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? That's carried, 7 in favor and none opposed. Our student representative report. Stella is with us this evening. Welcome. And what's new?
Hi, thank you. I have a lot of updates this month. First of all, I think the biggest thing on everyone's radar is schools fully reopening. And on behalf of the students, we understand that the administration is in a really difficult position right now. And we're very excited for all of the younger kids to go back to full-time school. One thing that I think is important to let you guys know is that there's a general consensus from the upperclassmen that even though it's obviously the best option for our education, going back 5 days a week is going to be a hard adjustment to make. First of all, with all the activities kicking back up, kids are projecting that a full return to school could be exhausting and potentially overwhelming, especially in the beginning. Since our APs are coming up, everyone's going to have to reorganize their study schedules and will likely become very sleep deprived very quickly. From waking up early 2 days a week to waking up early 5 days a week is a pretty big shift. And there are also concerns over where to eat and where to park in school, but Dr. Hall just sent out an email that will really help clarify that. So thank you for that. A full return to school is definitely the best course of action for student education, but I think it's important to acknowledge the difficulty of the transition and to be patient with our students because we might struggle with it at first. We also appreciate the updates about the end of the year. And one question that I have gotten asked a lot is how many guests the seniors can bring to our graduation. And I understand if that's not decided yet, but we'd really like to know because I know a lot of people have family coming into town to watch them graduate. We also have spring sports starting, like Dr. Hall said, and this is particularly exciting for many students because this is their first season in 2 years. So for example, I'm on the track team and I haven't gotten to run a race since sophomore year. So I'm really excited for that this year. And we also have executive council elections coming up. We're doing our informational meeting for that on Wednesday, I believe, and we'll start planning the class elections soon after that. I also wanted to offer a student perspective on the sexual assault issue. It was brought to attention on social media last week, and through a petition that gathered thousands of signatures really, really quickly from members of the community, not just students, not just parents. Like, I feel like everyone was able to see this and sign it if they were interested. And I'm sure that every student who is on social media is aware of the accused rapist's name and actions. So students, especially underclassmen, are watching the way that the administration and the police department handle this issue to make their own judgments about whether or not they can trust both authorities to responsibly handle their problems. The emails from Dr. Hall and Dr. McGowan have been really helpful so far, and I hope for the students' sake that they continue to handle this situation well by communicating and keeping these resources accessible. Lastly, I wanted to mention that we usually have a student senate meeting where the Board of Education comes in and answers questions for the students. This year, we would likely be doing this on the middle of a Wednesday if we're on Zoom, and pretty much any day of the week if we are fully back in person. I'm going to work on scheduling that with the rest of Executive Council, and I will send in some potential dates for that. So that is it for tonight. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Stella. And on that note, send a note to Mrs. Lanzafame and myself. We will make that happen. That meeting that we have every year, the board with the Student Senate, is really important. So if we can make that happen by Zoom, we will certainly make that. We'll make that work. So we'll figure out some dates, and if you want to send me a note and copy Mrs. Lanzafame, we'll make sure we get that done. And then thank you for your student perspective. We appreciate it. That's why we have a representative, and we appreciate you bringing your thoughts to us, and especially the fact that you really do work hard to gather other thoughts from students in the building. We do appreciate you bringing that forward to us. So thank you.
Thank you. I will send you guys an email as soon as I can.
We'll make that work. Thank you. Moving on then to our Board of Education, Monroe County School Boards Association standing committees. Our Labor Relations Committee last met, I believe, Larry, I don't know if anyone attended the 24th of March on the healthcare update. Was anyone able to attend that?
No, March 24th was my wife's birthday, so I had to take her to lunch that day, so I missed that one.
Oh, she didn't want to join in on Zoom? I mean, you know. Okay.
So I know it was March 24th, Mark. That I can tell you.
You know the date. All right, then upcoming April 28th is the next meeting on evaluating staff in a virtual environment. If I got that down correctly. So.
Yep.
And again, as board members have seen, Monroe County School Boards Association is really working hard to meet everybody's needs. So many of our meetings have moved back in person at the DoubleTree, socially distant, but also offering the Zoom option. And they continue to work on the Zoom option. The Zoom option is not perfect, as we'll talk about probably a little bit with Legislative Committee, but they're trying to make it work and where they can. So I would say, as I've said to our group, wherever you're comfortable with, if you're vaccinated and wearing a mask and comfortable attending in person, it's an individual choice at this point. But remember, all of them are available through a Zoom option too. Information exchange, that was March 10th on Code of Conduct. Julene, did you attend that?
I think we've already reported on that. We're meeting again tomorrow, and it's our last meeting of the year, and the topic is going to be diversity initiatives. There are 4 different superintendents who are going to be presenting. Monroe 1 and 2 BOCES superintendents, as well as Sean Nelms from East High School and Kathleen Groutman from Greece.
Yeah, this is an important one. This is the one, and it's available by Zoom link if you've registered, or you can go in person. This is discussing the superintendent's diversity initiative. So this goes back to about a year ago when the Monroe County superintendents got together, and this will bring everybody up to speed. I believe Dr. Baker has reported out earlier this year. Kevin has on our participation in it that is resulting in sort of pilot curriculum, one at elementary grade and one at secondary grade. And I believe that report out tomorrow is on that entire initiative. So it should be pretty interesting.
I would just also point out it's a good moment to remind our community, if you go to our website, bcsd.org, and look at our diversity, equity, inclusion tab, there's a pretty significant number of resources and reports on what has been happening, especially specific to this year, including an overview of a response to the letter that we sent prior to the county letter, entitled Don't Just Say It, Live It, with 9 commitments that the district would make, measurable, hands-on, practical, observable commitments to this work. And there's an overview of our response to that and a follow-up as of this March, everything that had been done in that regard, including that curriculum work that is part of a countywide effort. But our letter also made other specific Brighton commitments that went beyond that letter. And if people in our community would like to take a look at that, that's all there for the viewing. And thanks to Dr. Baker for putting that portion of the website together and compiling those resources for community members as well.
Thank you, Kevin, for bringing that up. It's a really great point. Next up, Legislative Committee, that was last week, April 7th, last Wednesday. Karen, you mentioned earlier, again, you tried to join by Zoom on that one.
I stuck with it the whole time. So I was so excited. I'm fully vaccinated. I had a babysitter lined up for Peggy and it didn't work out. So I was like, oh, out of the house. So I did join by Zoom. It was a difficult setup. So I got about half, but I'll tell you there, I think I got the gist of it. So there was a lot of discussion about reopening. And again, this is before the guidance had come out. So a lot of those questions that folks had and were lobbying for have been answered. And then there was some celebration about the budget that was enacted on April 3rd and about a floor for 60%. That doesn't affect a lot of districts here in Rochester, but there was, there's just, it just felt like this moment where we could let go. And we probably can't because we still probably are under the threat of collapsing aids, and who knows whether we'll meet 100% in 3 years, and who knows if they'll redo the algorithm. But it was a moment to breathe a little bit. I think being together in person for folks and then having that news was a genuine moment, let's say. So as the discussion moved on, it's really about keeping on our legislators to fulfill the promises they've made to us, right? We're getting there. That was the general theme. And then we do have one more meeting next month. And on May 12th, there are appointments. There's an appointment to Zoom with people from Gillibrand and Schumer's offices with our federal legislators. So that will be good to keep up with what's happening with the new administration. So
that's great. Thanks, Karen. I appreciate it. Yeah, you're right. I did follow up. I was not able to attend that day. I will report out later at district-wide safety committee and at the same time. But I did follow up with Sherry on a couple of things. And you're right. We have a meeting set up with folks from Schumer and Gillibrand's office. We're also setting one up with Joe Morelli's office people. And one of the things that Karen brings up is interesting for those of us that have been around doing this for so long. Legislative committee normally would make 2 trips to Albany a year, in addition to all the local appointments, in addition to inviting our local representatives into our buildings. And the first item, the main item of discussion every single year is funding, right? Fully fund the foundation aid formula. So now the discussion about, okay, now what, right? Well, we do have to hold their feet to the fire, number one, to make sure in the upcoming years that continues to be maintained. But legislative committee is going to continue to discuss advocacy and all of the other areas of advocacy that maybe have been a bit on the back burner. That we have a lot to do with state education department, a lot of changes with the Board of Regents that currently is in place and the state education department. the chancellor, the commissioner. And so there's a lot there, and along with a number of advocacy issues that we have brought up from time to time, but always take a back burner to
Well, and
fund.
there are a lot of things that happen that affect education in ways you won't understand. You know, the commercial
Right.
driver's license issue is one of them. It's not an exciting topic to talk about at board meetings, but that's the kind of work the legislative committee has always done and will continue to do. But, you know, from my own perspective, I said to Dr. McGowan, when we were talking about a floor of 60% actually happening, we've worked so long towards that goal. It was in that moment, it was hard to think about how I felt that it had actually happened. Like, what do we do now? It was just a
Very
moment.
good
I had a
point.
moment.
So we'll keep everybody posted as we move forward. So thank you. Those are those 3 committee reports. And again, you mentioned those are winding down now. It's, you know, typically the May meetings, April and May meetings tend to be the final meetings, and the School Boards Association annual meeting is going to be in person at the end of May. We could talk about that further. BOCES report. I did attend, last week was the BOCES annual meeting, and I attended along with Dr. Marv Sachs. We were the only representatives of any component district who were there, so we're proud for that event. It's not a highly attended event, but SOAR also provided a report on some of the things that they're doing. The full report will be in our minutes. BOCES does have begun this year a large diversity, equity, and inclusivity committee, and it's got a mission statement, working on curriculum. They're looking at a 3 to 5 year time frame that they want to plan out and lay out for BOCES activity. So that's underway. They are also challenged, as many of you know who've ever attended BOCES graduations. There are multiple BOCES graduations of varying sizes spread out all over the area. And so they're trying to put together their planning for how they're going to handle all their graduations. And the remainder of the report we'll have in the minutes for everybody to take a look at. Other board member reports. Does anyone have anything that they want to report out on as far as
Sure.
other committee work that they've been involved with or initiatives?
Yeah, Mark, I can talk a little bit about that New York State.
Yeah,
Board.
Christina, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
If you
So I'm the representative to this new Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee of the New York State School Board Association. So I represent Area 2, which is in the Rochester suburban districts. Area 1 is the Buffalo area, and then Area 2 is Long Island. So there are 14 people on this committee, and we've been meeting once a month since February. So we met in February, once in March, and we have a meeting this Saturday. It's really a new committee, and Mark, Mr. Kukanovich, you could probably tell a little bit more about the history of how this committee came to be, but really, you know, we are talking about ways that school board members can support DEI initiatives across the state and in our districts that we represent in our areas. Really, the first few meetings, we did a lot of, you know, community, getting to know each other kinds of things. We've already done a book read, a book called Seats at the Table, which were really reflections from board members across the United States on DEI efforts. And that led to a really interesting conversation about who should be doing the work, who's doing the work, and you know, how the people doing the labor feel. And then we also got a data walk from the National School Board Association, really to look at what's happening in New York State. So it's been, you know, it's been a really interesting group of people to work with. I'm really happy to represent, you know, this area because I can share some of what we've been doing here in Brighton. So that's been good.
Yeah, thank you very much, Christina, for reporting out. And, you know, we talked about this briefly back a few months ago when Christina was appointed, but I want to make sure we capture, this is really significant. New York State School Boards Association began, like most every entity involved in public education, began work on DEI and how they serve school boards. They began probably 2 years ago, but in earnest last year with a number of initiatives. Then this year they rolled out this statewide committee with one member, one active school board member from each area. They sought Christina out. They sought us out, and Christina specifically, and she represents this area too, is from Batavia to Waterloo, from the Lake Ontario to the Pennsylvania border. So she is the board representative for that entire area. It's a huge thing for her and for us, and we're really well represented at that table. So thank you, Christina. I appreciate that. So that's great work, and it's ongoing. And again, that's to create more and more resource material and lay out a multi-year plan for State School Boards Association to provide service directly to school boards in this work. So thank you. Other board members with a recent activity?
Just quickly, Mark, from a facilities improvement project overall, obviously a ton of focus on Council Rock, but also the work going on at other schools. I think we talked about this last time. We're starting to clean up over at Council Rock a little bit. The work is not done, but the construction trailers are starting to go, and we're getting closer to being done. I think in NFL terms, we're like in the red zone or something. We're getting there. The school looks fantastic. Kudos to Matt and the entire team for just all that they're doing over there and what they've had to work through. The science rooms in the high school are progressing very nicely. And then typical of construction projects is something called a punch list. It's all those little one-off items that go on throughout the schools that have to be taken care of. And they could be cleanups, they could be just fixing things that need to be addressed. So the punch list is taking place in all those schools. We do this each time, but it's important to do so. The folks we've got working, whether it be Rob Luce, John Novelli, any of those guys in the schools, just yeoman's work for all the work they're doing to make sure this work gets done. But we're very much in a home stretch on the construction projects, plural. And it's just very exciting because, a couple of different projects were alluded to. But when all this work is done, we just really will have much better physical structure, infrastructure, and things like that. And schools, from that standpoint, that we can be that much more proud of. But just really impressive, the scope and breadth of work that's getting done and getting close to completion.
Thank you very much, Larry, and thank you for your service on that committee and that group, I should say, for the long haul. So we appreciate you bringing that forward tonight too.
The only other thing I had, Mark, is I think our final audit of the year, I checked with Lou, I think that's next month for you, me, and Karen. I believe that's next month where we do final audit reviews.
Yep, thank you. We'll be upcoming on that. Any other board members? Any other reports?
Yes, Mark, just to, you mentioned it briefly about the district-wide safety committee meeting, just so the public understands that it's not just CDC guidance and then we're good to go. We have a whole safety committee that's also has been planning and working all year and checking our plans to make sure that when the guidance changed, we would be ready to come back and keep our students and staff as safe as possible. And so that committee has been making sure each and every classroom, with the new guidance has desks that are the proper, space apart, that transportation is not going to become an issue. So there's staggered drop-off times and dismissal times so that car traffic doesn't get overwhelmed at French Road, especially, and at Council Rock. So I attended that. It was a great meeting. I know you had to duck off. Mark, you were there, but you had to duck off to legislative meeting. You didn't miss too much else when you left. So that work is ongoing.
Thank you, Sue. And I didn't get anything on the other one either. So thank you. And I do, just to reiterate, that is a great point. We do have a district-wide safety committee for the members of the public, and everyone is around that table. Dr. Gasparino got added to that committee this year in her role as a board member, but also as a pediatrician. And we have community leaders from all the safety and first responders are there, all of our security people, all of our building people, all of our leaders. And it's been great conversation this year. It's technically, on Zoom, but really covering all of our bases and checking in with everyone with regard to safety, security, how we're operating, how we're moving forward, the planning process. Lou chairs that committee, does a great job on top of all the other things that everybody in leadership tries to do. So thanks to Lou, and that was a great meeting. And we'll continue to have, normally those meetings are spread far apart, but those will continue to meet as needed and as necessary. That committee will. So thank you very much, Sue, for bringing that up. Our Brighton Teachers Association report. Nicole, welcome.
Thank you. I'll try and hit the highlights here. I know we're inching our way towards 9 o'clock.
You're doing a great report. Thank you for the advance. We've seen it. It's fantastic. So go ahead.
Good. All right. So you saw from Council Rock, some of the second graders, the remote second graders, they did a research data collection project. Just a huge, being a hybrid teacher, a huge shout out to those remote teachers and these students who are able to really create, present, public speak, when we would normally be doing that in the classroom. So they did a fabulous job, and there's some examples there of that. Kristen Cooper and Janice Mix did videos, workout videos, where they featured, so still at Council Rock, where they featured different groups within the building, within the school community. So teachers, custodians, cafeteria staff, administrators, each did a particular dance, and then it was pushed out to all of the K2 students. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure that Mr. Tappan did Ride 'em, Rope 'em. Yep. So that was pretty awesome. If you haven't checked those out and you need a little break, you can definitely enjoy those. We also had Sue Gasparino come and share her expertise in Zumba, and they learned dances and games from all around the world. So a big thank you for spending your time contributing to that. Another piece, our science this year for first grade and second grade at Council Rock has been pushed out by our extended studies teachers, Andrea Yaman and Judy Wegman. And for the first grade, this unit is all about sound and being able to, how do you think about sending messages? They created a the Knights of Habits of Mind Kingdom, and Dr. Antoinette Bowouchi, which was the doctor of the kingdom, found a virus that affected dragon eggs, and they had to get a quarantine. So a really great way to incorporate maybe some terms that students, excuse me, are hearing now, but to go along with the lesson. And then once they were able to get the dragon eggs safe, they had to figure out how to turn it into an instrument. So really just clever ways to make that virtual work for our youngest learners. Pardon me. At French Road, they celebrated Down Syndrome Awareness Day on March 19th. And they had a parent come into the classroom and read and present a story about Down syndrome and inclusion. This was submitted by Dory Simmons, and she had a student and his brother who has Down syndrome. So she was very excited to be able to have that. And I think those were the two photographs I put in. Mrs. Close and Mrs. Maz's fifth grade classes, they're remote. They have Zoom pals from honor students to RIT. And once a week, they meet with their college buddy, play games, develop a relationship with someone outside of Zoom. And they are really enjoying that piece. Fourth and fifth grade string students were able to attend a presentation through one of the string quartets at the Eastman School of Music. They have Zooms that they are holding with 12 Corners, the fifth graders do, to start to think about that transition to TCMS. That's from Mrs. Isham, who's the fourth and fifth grade string lessons teacher. This was, I know that this is the headline on the BCSD website right now, the picture of Mr. Dozer and the band students. And when I opened the submission, I don't know if you guys felt this way, but I had this huge smile on my face because you can just see the joy in his face and the students' faces. And what they were able to do was connect with real life musicians and see how music influences their lives as adults, but then also kind of think of that connection. But I know that you probably have enjoyed looking at those pictures, and we all get to see them now, so that's really nice. Moving on to 12 Corners, they have been having mini concerts for parents and teachers. And each group is preparing and performing pieces, and they invited parents and grandparents to be able to see them play. So that was really special. The French department for the middle school and the high school participated, I'm not going to pronounce this right, a Mani Musicale with a French music cooperative with 2,000 schools across the world. They design it like March Madness, where they fill out brackets, they pick different French inspired music, and then come down to the winners. And they were very invested in this and actually got comments from the winners back. So, you know, lots of great ways that we've been using this whole virtual life we're living now in really great ways. In 6th grade social studies, Mrs. Katsetos's class have been having virtual tours. They've been to the Susan B. Anthony House. They have Zoomed with an archaeologist in Corinth, in Greece, and they have visited Nashville, Tennessee. They've also been able to connect with the Brighton Town historian, Mary Jo Lamphere, and the librarian at the Brighton Memorial Library, Mrs. Viviani. And this was really special. I hope you guys got to read this part nicely. For the 5th summer, Camp Gorham is collaborating with Brighton schools to send 5 kids to summer camp. And that is made possible from the Laura and Larry Davis Scholarship Fund at Camp Gorham. And this was shared by Mrs. Liebel at 12 Corners. And the testimonials were really beautiful. The 2 that I just want to read where I'm incredibly grateful. So this is from students that submitted this, students who had gone. I'm incredibly grateful for camp. It has helped me come out of my shell, and I've noticed that I've been more excited to try new things after going to camp. I'm also grateful for camp because it's helped me make friends that come from many different places that I still keep in touch with. And thank you so much to the program to support this amazing experience. So what a great thing that we're supporting students to have that experience in the summer, not just what we are able to provide during the year. And then at the high school, if you have ever read House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros, Mrs. Hall's and Mrs. Flynn's students have created a collection that they are going to be able to publish about what it means to be a teenager in the year 2020. And it's actually going to be published by Lulu Books this spring. So really exciting stuff. This was a really nice report this time to put together. Lots of great things to celebrate. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicole, and appreciate that. And again, your report is posted online. It's always one of the best reports, and including the links and all the different materials that, again, what I said earlier with the principal report, seeing students and teachers working in making it work in any way that they possibly can. So thank you so much. Next up, our PTSA report. Welcome, Eleanor.
Thanks, Mark. I know I am between everyone and the end of this meeting almost, and so I will be brief. But the PTSA is really excited because they're now underway planning for these end of year activities, including 8th grade closure night again, the senior bash, as well as our community-wide food truck rodeo. If they're not tired of the food truck from the, you can eat food many nights. So June 4th, we're having the community-wide food truck rodeo, as well as tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. The PTSA will be presenting the slate for next year's executive committee, and then the vote will be at our May meeting. And then also following the brief meeting from 6:30 to 7, Betsy Balling and many of the counselors and social workers are hosting a mental health awareness meeting as many of our students are going back to school. They'll be there to kind of answer questions and help, provide information about the transition back for students. And then the last thing that I'm going to announce is that the PTSA will be hosting a Board of Education Meet the Candidates Night for the 2 seats that are open and all of the candidates that will be announced shortly. And that's on Thursday, April 29th from 7 to 8:30. They're also looking to hold a fundraiser with DeBellas at the end of April, and we'll have more news about that sent out over email. So watch your emails.
Fantastic, Eleanor. Thank you very much. And I don't think it's possible to get tired of food trucks, but anyway, thanks. And Dr. McGowan, you have the floor. Further report from you this evening, sir?
I think I've said plenty. Stay healthy, stay masked, drive the rate down. Can't wait for K-5 kids to come back. And don't forget to vote on the 18th. Virtual Town Hall Thursday night. Hope to see everybody. Have a wonderful night. Stay healthy.
Okay, thank you for that report. We have a couple more items of business this evening, board, and I do apologize, but we do have back the approval for second read of those 9 policies that we dealt with a few weeks back, and we do have to address them individually. So I will tell you ahead of time that everything has been vetted internally. I have no issues that have been raised with any of these, so we can move through them. If you have something specific, though, however, this is second read, so that if they're approved this evening, they become policy. If there is something, please do bring it up. So we will start, please, with a motion for approval of policy 6110 under personnel, having to do with code of ethics for board members and district personnel. A motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Larry, seconded by Julene. This policy replaces the current policy in its entirety, and it's to comply with the corrective action plan from SED, and again, fully vetted internally. Does anyone have anything further for this policy? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That policy is approved, 7 in favor and none opposed. Motion, please, to approve second read of policy 5520 under non-instructional business operations for extra classroom activity fund. A motion?
So move. Second.
Moved by Andrea, seconded by Julene. This policy is a policy revision to implement the accounting GASB 74 standards. Again, fully vetted internally. I have nothing further to add. Is there anything from the board? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That policy is approved, 7 in favor and none opposed. Motion, please, for policy second read approval, policy 1330, under the bylaws, appointments and designations of the board.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Karen and seconded by Christina. This is an existing policy that was revised in response to U.S. Department of Education changes in requirements. And again, I have nothing further on that one. Does anyone have anything further on that this evening? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is approved, 7 in favor and none opposed. A motion, please, for approval, second read of policy 1620, bylaws in the annual organizational meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Sue, seconded by Larry. That is, let me find it here, my next one. This is existing policy, and it was revised in response to amendments to education law with regard to the annual organizational meeting. And we are up to date. I don't have anything further internally on that. Does anyone have anything further on that one? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is approved, 7 in favor and none opposed. Motion, please, for approval of policy 1640, again, a bylaws policy on absentee ballots.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Andrea and seconded by Julene. This is an existing policy, and again, revised in response to those changes. It's the same as the earlier policy in education law and from the commissioner. And anything further from anyone? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? And that is approved, 7 in favor and none opposed. A motion, please, for approval, second read of policy 5681, non-instructional business operations covering school safety plans.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Larry, seconded by Karen. This is an existing policy, and again, revised in response to the amendments for those same sections of education law that have previously been referenced. Does anyone have anything further this evening on that? Then all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That's 7 in favor and none opposed. That policy is approved as second read. A motion then for approval, second read, policy 3420, community relations, non-discrimination and anti-harassment in the district.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Christina and seconded by Sue. That is existing policy. This one was revised due to various changes in both federal and state non-discrimination and anti-harassment laws, and including Title IX changes from the Education Department. So we are up to speed on that one. Anything further from anybody? Then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That's 7 in favor and none opposed. Thank you. Motion please for policy second read approval 7420, covering students and sports in the athletic program.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Andrea and seconded by Larry. Again, an existing policy, and this is another policy that's being revised in response to the Department of Education at the federal level changes to the Title IX legislation. Does anyone have anything further on that one? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion or that policy is approved for second read, 7 in favor and none opposed. And then finally, a motion please for approval, second read, policy 5633, non-instructional business operations with regard to gender neutral single occupancy bathrooms.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Christina, seconded by Sue. I got that correct? And again, this is a brand new policy. We've talked about it previously. It's a required policy covering the area addressed, and we are up to speed. Everyone's reviewed internally, and we're good on this. Does anybody have anything else that they would like to add? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? And that motion, that policy is approved for second read, 7 in favor and none opposed. Thank you very much. And we'll try not to bring 9 policies on one agenda ever again if we can. But we've got to do what we've got to do. So thanks, everybody. And then finally tonight, a motion please to approve the consent agenda.
Can I interrupt for a second, Mark?
Yes.
I just realized that the approval for the board election, that's not on the consent agenda. I'm trying to go back and forth, but I think it's missing.
Approval for the board election.
No, for the board, the
Election
poll
inspector.
work. Yeah, exactly. The election. inspector.
That got moved off the agenda to the next meeting. Because I
Okay.
have to find a few
Thank
more.
you.
So
Okay.
that's why I amended the agenda. So you're right. It's not on there.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
You're
thanks.
welcome.
Thanks, everybody. But Christina, you're right. Good catch. But it is in our OneNote, our internal OneNote for the board members. But the agenda was amended from the original, as Kim mentioned. So that has to be completed. But she kept it in the OneNote for our information. So thank you, everybody. But we're good on that. So thanks. And that will be next meeting. We'll approve that. And those would be the election inspectors through the Monroe County Board of Elections, which are now have been required for a couple of years. So thank you very much. Okay, the consent agenda, a motion please for approval of our consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Karen, seconded by Julene. We made note of one gift this evening. We appreciate a gift from Maria Vanette to the Brighton Central School District Visual and Performing Arts Department of a laptop and mixer tripod stand. So thanks to Maria for that gift. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved, 7 in favor and none opposed. Thank you. Board members, any other items of business for this evening?
Can we talk some more about budget? No, just kidding. Just kidding.
Well, we can. I'm not sure if we should.
That's in the extended cut, available only online, I guess, if you're a premium subscriber or something, but.
To meet the press green room.
That aside, Dr. McGowan, anything further for this evening?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. We're all set. All right, thank you, everybody. A motion, please, to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Andrea, seconded by Karen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There's no one opposed, I'm certain. We are adjourned, 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you very much, everybody. We appreciate it.
This has been a special presentation from the Brighton Central School District Board of Education.